Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Lawton. I am a designer inventor. I'm not local, as I'm sure you've picked up already from my accent. I never really intended to be a designer or inventor. It was a calling. I never had any choice in the matter. It was like one of those things that I've always had so many ideas that what else was I going to become? For a moment, I flirted with the idea of working in advertising, and then I realized that making things was what I loved, and I'd loved it since I was a kid. My father was an aerospace engineer, so I guess I had an insight into a very technical world. But to be honest, his work kind of put me off design because it was so complicated, and the mathematic bar was way up there. I love simple ideas, and I love turning them into reality, and that's what I do. So I'm not local. I'm kind of out of my comfort zone being even in a big city like Chicago. I'm from the countryside. I'm from a little place called Wiltshire in England, and this is a panoramic selfie actually I took with one of my inventions. It's a thing called a bubble pod. It's like a clockwork turntable that you put your phone in, you wind it up, and it goes through 360 in 40 seconds and creates professional grade 360, so enough time to run and climb over the bridge while the thing's taking and come back. You might recognize this type of scene from like things like Warhorse and Stardust and the Wolfman. So we've had Spielberg in the village, and every now and then they want the right backdrop to make things look like it's Christmas all the time, which is kind of what Cusp does look like. But it's lovely to be here, and I've already fallen in love with your city. I've been running up and down the lake. I've run 15 miles in the last kind of day and a half since I've been here. And what I love about it is the fact that you can step out of the city and see it and have perspective, and that's such a good thing. And perspective is one of those important things in life, to be able to step out of your situation and kind of see things fresh. Now, this is the town I'm from. It's called Malmesbury, Wiltshire. The image might make you think of a Stephen King thing called Under the Dome. Is that anybody familiar with that? I don't know the premise of the show, but I imagine it's a little bit like The Truman Show. And in reality, Malmesbury is a little bit like that. There's only 5,000 of us who live in it. It's like a big village. It's about an hour and a half from London. You'd find it if you walked London's Thames River all the way back to the source, then got to the source and walked 5 miles south, then you'd find Malmesbury, and you'd find Me and the Smoking Dog, which is a pub that's somewhere around there. It is a kind of microcosm. It is different to the rest of the world. I've never locked my bike in this town, right? So I live in a world that's a little bit yesteryear, but I really like that because the way that we're connected with tools these days means that you can live in the future wherever you are. And if you've got imagination to power that, then it really doesn't matter where you are. So for me, I like nature and I like stillness. I've got so much going on in my head that being somewhere that's got very little going on is really good. So I've got no distraction. We don't even have billboards, we don't have adverts on the streets, none of those things. And I look at all those things as kind of taking the energy from you and distracting you. So I find myself as a product designer or an inventor, which is a strange thing because it's kind of about materialism in a weird way, and I'm a very spiritual person. There's also another famous inventor from Malmesbury. You might have heard of a guy called James Dyson. He's been reasonably successful, so he's punching above his weight for our town. Lots of friends who work at Dyson HQ, and some very, very smart people there doing some very cool stuff. It's not all domestic floor care. They're doing some really interesting things that don't see the light of day. I was taking my son to school on the skateboard bike, of course. Dyson was coming the other way in his hermetically sealed air-conditioned Rolls Royce. And me and Barney, this is my 7-year-old son here, we kind of waved and thought, I don't want that life. What motivates me in this world is creative freedom and the ability to keep doing what I do, and that's what keeps my enthusiasm. You've got to be prepared to go against the grain in life. Barney's school, there's 300 kids. That means 300 parents every day take their children to school. There are 2 other parents who cycle their children, and they have kind of regular bike things. Now, on Barney's first week at school, I was walking him to school and I walked him back again, and it took 40 minutes there and 40 minutes back, and I had to do that twice a day. So you can imagine that's a lot of time taken up on the school run. And I was determined not to just do what everybody else did, which was get in the car and become part of what I would call the congestion run. So all the cars are there, and the kids kind of, they limply walk into school. Now, when Barney arrives at school, the teachers say to him, "What breakfast do you give your son?" Because he is so invigorated. Well, of course he is, because he rides up front with me. And we've been doing that for like 3 years now. There's only one problem, and that's the only person who's getting fit is me. So Barney's big. He's at the cusp of not being able to use it, which is sad, because you can imagine the conversations that we have as we're going along, and we're driving, and our heads are next to each other, and it's a wonderful thing. But the skateboard bike is going. However, I'm training his little brother. So this is Rufus Mars. One day, I swear to you, you'll be on Sunset Boulevard and you're going to see the name Rufus Mars in lights. I don't know why or what. It might be just infamous for something crazy. I'm not sure. I live for my children, right? So I'm the richest man in the world. I'm richer than Mr. Dyson. Of course, he's got a family and they're wonderful and he loves them. But that's what makes me rich, is my kids, and I live a simple life. I don't live surrounded by a design scene of any sort. I'm an ideas-led person, and I don't think that ideas have to come from, well, they don't. They simply don't come from kind of academic academic industrial design training. Ideas belong to anybody, and they're such a democratic thing that we're all in reach of them. About 1996, I'll be 20 years old. I'd started to do a degree in product design. I didn't really know what product design was. Apple hadn't kind of made their great wave into it and brought everybody in the mainstream up to scratch with what it was about. It was a discovery for me. But as part of that degree, I had the chance to work in industry. And I didn't really want to go into London. It was very competitive. And I found that competition is a really good thing, but often it can stifle creativity a little bit. What I like is things that are spirited. You see, I'm not a big reader. I don't go on holiday with books and read Grisham novels or whatever. I go on holiday with blank sketchbooks and I fill them. I wanted to kind of awaken myself a little bit. I wanted to have an experience. I was supposed to do an industrial placement. I decided to go to South Africa because I was in love with this man. I was so inspired by what he was doing and how that country was transforming. So as soon as Mandela went into power, I was there for a year in the Rainbow Nation, and my goodness, was it an amazing place to be. Of course, to satisfy my degree, I had to have some industrial experience that was relevant to design, and I ended up working in high-end virtual reality applications. This is 18 years ago. You build things in VR sets, and whether it be for CGI or whether it be for architects. But the company who I worked for back in Cape Town at that time had the most amazing state-of-the-art silicon graphics setup. It was all Unix-based, and we were building cities for architects, 6 square miles of urban development, and I was the guy on the computer. And so my exposure to virtual reality tools in 1996 was incredible. I used an Onyx Reality Engine 2. It was a kind of £250,000 computer the size of a dishwasher. And so, to me, the last 20 years have just kind of been catching up with where that was, to be honest. But what South Africa gave me was this incredible spirit, this incredible kind of sense of like, wow, I work in that space. The intersection between art and science, and it's wonder. I kind of spend my life wondering about things, about everything, about other people, about life, about what we're doing, about how we can make things more positive and better. I came back from South Africa with a sense of like, right, I've got to finish my degree. I could go and get a job. I don't want a job. If I could find the right company to work for, sure, but who's going to let me truly go wild with my imagination? What I need to do is create that job for myself. So I went on this journey. I want to be an inventor. I want to actually conceive my own ideas, and I want to work on them, and I want to build businesses around them. Nobody's going to pay you to do that. Nobody's going to pay you to develop your ideas and then let you have the rights to it. So my journey has started lean and right at the bottom. When I finished university, I was working on a golf course, being paid £4.50 an hour. It's like under $10. And I was paying a patent attorney £150 an hour. So as you can imagine, my financial position wasn't particularly sustainable. But I have slowly climbed up this ladder over the years. You've got to follow the path that you feel is right for you, and it is going to be the difficult path, but it's worth it in the end. So I came back from South Africa thinking about, right, what am I going to design for my last year of my degree? If I thought, it's not about getting a job with this degree, let's design something, let's invent something, and maybe I could take that to market. That would put kind of point to all these years of studying. And I was wondering, what should I design? And I decided to think about redesigning the ironing board. And I thought, well, what's the most exciting thing I could do with an ironing board? I know, I'll put it on the top of my parents' house, and I'll do the ironing on there, and see if there's anything at all exciting or interesting about ironing boards. There isn't. And I didn't redesign the ironing board. But do you know what happened? 6 months after the shot was taken, and that's in 1997, there was a movement in Britain, and it started in Leicester, 6 months after this photo was taken, called extreme ironing. Has anybody heard of this? Have you heard of extreme ironing? I mean, I've always thought, how the fuck did they see that photograph? What happened there? I just think that it's one of those eccentrically British things that I did, and then there would just happen to be some other eccentric Brits who started extreme ironing. I didn't redesign the ironing board. I started at the beginning of the day, and I thought, right, what frustrates the hell out of me? Let's go with that angle with inventing something. Let's find a product that annoys me. Wah, 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 wah. 7:30 in the morning, my alarm clock. Of course, my alarm clock drives me mad. I mean, you wake up before it's actually gone off in order to disable it, and then you oversleep, and then you're late for work. So this is my first product, my first success. So I didn't make a lot of money, but it allowed me at the age of 22 to make an idea happen. And the product was quite simple, really. You've got more imagination than a beep beep. So make a product with nothing and with no sound whatsoever. And then you record whatever you want to do in it. It doesn't sound very exciting today because it's, 2014, and of course our phones can just do all this stuff. But this was in 1997. Maybe we had answer phones that had a digital state recorder in it, I don't know. But this was successful. I sold 250,000 of these at age 22, 23, before Kickstarters and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there wasn't even the internet to be able to go and research where I could find potential partners from. These guys loved it. So kids because they've got such big imaginations. And they're not inhibited. They record their siblings kind of making all sorts of stupid sounds and wake up in all sorts of different ways. So this was a tremendous success. And it gave me a sense of like, right, okay, now what's next? I went traveling. So for a brief period of time, I had a little bit of money from royalties, so I could free myself up a little bit. I wasn't so grounded in doing freelance stuff and however else I was paying the bills. I went traveling to India. If you've ever been to India, it is truly the most amazing, jaw-dropping, visual stimulation, such an incredible experience. I was in an open carriage doorway, riding third class. There basically is no door. It's an open space. How fantastic is that? Of course, that's exactly where I'm sat, looking at the open world in front of me. And behind me are probably about 16 or 17 other Indian guys who were crammed into that space. And I had this kind of vision, and I thought, bearing in mind that I'd had this exposure a couple of years before in high-end virtual reality applications, right? So I knew about immersive environments. I had this vision, and I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could capture life as a bubble? Right, so I'm on this train and it's moving along. If I could somehow have a camera, this is before there were mainstream digital cameras, before Google Street View, this is before the iPod, and I thought, I'm going to create a panoptic portal for mobile virtual reality communication, right? Now, you might be able to grasp now what I'm meaning by that when you think of Oculus Rift and where Facebook are going to take the whole kind of virtual reality thing, the idea of bringing in immersive worlds as a means of communication. I was thinking that in 2001. I'd never seen a camera phone, and I thought, imagine if I had a device that could shoot life, not in the subjective frame of a camera, which of course fits things in and it's blinkered, but truly giving it context to actually get the whole moment so that you could see the beautiful kind of sun setting over the mountains in this Indian landscape, and the train, and me with all the 12 guys in the carriage surrounding me, and capture that moment as a slice in time, and then be able to share that. And I was thinking about my mum, who was 6,000 miles away, and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could just capture this bubble, life in a moment, and send it to her, 6,000 miles away, and she'd be somewhere through the computer. I wasn't imagining she didn't have a mobile phone, and she could somehow see this bubble that I was in, and she'd think, oh, that's cool, Tom's happy. And that's all I wanted to know, right? So mobile virtual reality communication, the idea of VR picture messaging was conceived in that moment with me on a train because I wanted to capture and share life with people that I loved. I set about a self-funded R&D development project. At the top there, first concepts are a multiple radial array of cameras. Second along at the top, we've got a back-to-back fisheye smartphone. I've got reflective systems, I've got panoramic refracting optic, I've got catadioptic systems. I put contracts on BAE systems. By 2007, I had literally bled every bit of effort and energy I had into it, freelancing to kind of create incomes to make this happen. And I had a license deal with a big Far Eastern manufacturer to make the thing with the green band on it, which was called the Bubble Scope 1. And we were going to take that to market, make 100,000 of them, and I remortgaged my house, I sold my car to support that with prototypes that I needed to do, and the deal fell apart, so I had nothing. The same year I had my first child, so we were kind of like, oh God, right, Tom, yeah. My wife is my biggest investor because nobody else has ever supported me, right? And not financially. It never happened. The States works a little bit different like that. You champion ideas, people. In Britain, you have to prove yourself beyond the point of bending, okay? And that's the reality of it. I'm not complaining at that because I've only pursued what I want to do, what I love to do. So that failed, 2007. It was put down the side. But I'm not one to feel sorry for myself. I had another project. I had a couple of friends who were depressed, right? If you ever visualize depression, it's a down, darkward spiral. And this happens to everybody. I can get depressed. Of course I can. I can be euphoric as well. Fortunately, I don't live at either end of the spectrum all the time. Otherwise, I would be bonkers. And I had a couple of friends who were really suffering from depression. We were going into winter, so it was getting a bit dark and gloomy. And what I wanted to do was create something that Britain really needs, which is something that gets better when the weather gets bad, because the weather is so bad. And I thought, let's take the wind. And as a child, I'd always wondered, what is the wind? How do you see it? It's an invisible force, yet it moves the trees and everything else. I'm also thinking at the same time, I must get my mind into sustainable product design. And so what I did was innovate a thing called a Firewinder. I won a thing called the Green Dot Awards in America. It's like your biggest green design award. The Firewinder captures the wind from any direction, and it turns the wind's energy into an upward spiral of light. So instead of the dark downward spiral of light, upward spiral of light to lift people's moods. That's all I wanted to do. What was beautiful about it was that as the wind blew stronger, the Firewinder grew brighter. And it kind of rippled and pulsed and created mesmerizing effects. It used to turn anti-clockwise, and then I found myself in Java, on honeymoon actually, so we kind of got married after the kids or whatever. Radical. So I was in Java, and I was talking about it with this Buddhist teacher, and He said, does it turn clockwise or anti-clockwise? I said, it turns anti-clockwise. He said, oh no, it must turn clockwise. And I said, well, why is that? Well, it would evoke the good spirits, like a prayer wheel does. So I re-engineered it to go the other way. And most engineers don't do that kind of stuff, but I do because there's something more, there's something deeper. I don't know what it is, but there is something bigger, there's something magical. Now, this business failed in the recession, right? And it failed because to support the business, I had to take out a toxic business loan with one of our big banks. I'm not going to go about big bank bashing at the moment, although I could. But this business was strangled to death because I had put everything into a particular loan, and then I had a problem with my supply chain, and I couldn't sell products, and I was having to keep up payments on this particular loan, and it was on me personally, and it just strangled me to death. But I did one amazing thing with it, and that was I lit up Glastonbury tour. So I'm a Somerset kid, and I grew up near this place. You know it for the festival, and they've got this magical tour there. To me, it's my cathedral. I'm not religious, but that's my cathedral, and Castle Combe is my church. Nobody's ever lit it up. It's owned by British Heritage and the National Trust, and they said that you can't have fire, you can't have electricity, we can't put any of those things up there. I said, but it works in the wind. And they said, okay. So I went up one evening, it was like about -2 degrees up there because it's so high and the wind's so hard. Now, the people of Glastonbury are quite alternative, so their minds are already wired out there. And it's a little bit like a mini Burning Man kind of community, I suppose. We had hundreds of people, just like a pilgrimage, all came up to the top of the tour, and the BBC came by and they filmed it. And it was a wonderful thing. I've still got 150 in my garage. And today when I was running on Chicago Lake, I thought, yeah, I've got to take these on worldwide installation trips and put them in amazing places. Anyhow, so Firewinder was successful, right? But not financially, not commercially. But it was critically well acclaimed, so it won me 2 awards. Suddenly I'm like, all right, okay, I'm not just a completely mad random inventor. Bubble scope. Couldn't put the idea away. It had beaten me before, but what had happened was the idea the platform changed. So suddenly there was Facebook, suddenly there was Twitter, suddenly there was smartphones, suddenly there were camera phones. And I thought, well, rather than make this standalone camera that kind of sees everything, why not enable the phone to be able to do the same? So I made an attachment for an iPhone and a Samsung and BlackBerry and all those kind of things as well. It's a little capsule, you clip it on the back of your phone and you can shoot life in a bubble. And now I can do exactly that. So I've been in India and I've been in that situation where I'm on a train and I've shot the bubble and I've sent it to my mum, and that's quite fulfilling. That's quite fulfilling when you know that you were the guy who was thinking that like 10 years before. I've also made a thing that had a recent Kickstarter success. That shot at the beginning that was of Castle Combe, the big panorama that I took a 360 selfie, that was done on the clockwork turntable you see up there. Clockwork, because it just won't go wrong. You don't want to be up Machu Picchu, climbing, trekking, doing whatever, trying to get that perfect holiday panorama, and suddenly you've got to USB charge this thing. It's like, no, make it clockwork, make it simple. Anyhow, on this journey that I've been on, I suddenly had a kind of knock on the door from TV. I'd done little bits and bobs before. I'd always promoted my own products, and of course I've got this wonderful little family. I'm not biased. But about that kind of just saying yes to things that you wouldn't normally do. I actually can't stand celebrity culture. I kind of look at television, being the idea of being a TV presenter. I'm like, no, man, I want to be the future of TV inventor. I want to create this kind of immersive 360 world of TV that you could now have in an Oculus kind of thing. Tell the truth. TV's never really enchanted me, but they got in touch, and I had Channel 4 a meeting with them about 2 years ago, and they said, what would you like to do? And basically all I was doing was talking about my kids and showing photos of them. And the lady said, the commissioning editor just said, I said, I don't want to be a TV presenter, but I like challenges. She said, all right, we'll give you a challenge. How about you and your son, I don't know, create something completely different. We need a vehicle for you to kind of launch you into the world of TV. And bearing in mind, I always need to find second incomes to support my addictive ideas habit, because I could kind of bankrupt myself in a second. So my son Barney and I, we put our heads together and we created about 25 inventions over the course of what plays out as a 3-hour TV show, 3 parts. It's kind of like an emporium of invention, an imaginarium, a place where it could have been an inventor's shed at the end of the garden, but we did it on a boat. And we took an old pilot boat that was like 40 years old. It had been on the dry dock, something that had been discarded. And I thought, well, let's repurpose it and bring it back to life. If you've had anything to do with TV people before, you'll realize and know that producers like rather a lot of control over what they're doing. So the show pans out that in kind of real time, like me and Barney are conceiving all these ideas sequentially, and we go off on these trips. The truth is, before we filmed, Barney and I brainstormed together in 2 weeks, and we came up with 24 ideas that then came out because the producers needed control over what was going to happen. But it didn't take away the essence, and everything started as a sketch, and that was important because I wanted to not put any barriers in between people and their ideas. It should have been called the Proof of Concept Show, but this is what what I created, and I called it a necessity, the mother of invention, which is slightly ironic because there wasn't anything on it that was truly necessary. The great big golden armadillo roof rolled back so that it could be an indoor-outdoor space, the giant ship's funnel with a pop-up barbecue in it, that decking on the top, the furniture pops out from it. There's a vertical thing there, that's my beer cannon, of course, so that I could just press a button and from the fridge a beer came out and I caught it. And of course I'm there on TV and I actually catch it and drink it. One of my favourite things, top up there, is the hero seat. Right, we deliberated for ages as to what should the figurehead of the boat be. Should it be like Mermaid or Medusa or Poseidon or Neptune? And we were like, no, don't follow false gods. If you have the balls, you become the god of the boat. In the middle, we've got my grow and go garden, which is a cascade of baskets. It's an aquaponic grow and go garden, and it replenishes itself with water. And what I wanted to do to people was just wanted to infectiously enthuse about ideas, but also to tell people that there's something wonderful about daring to dream and going against convention. There were a few smart things up here, top right, of course, because I've got lots of friends who work with high-end optics, and I know a bit about that space myself from my 360 stuff. These are solar jellyfish. They collect light very sustainably, and they'll pipe it with fiber optics into wherever I want in the boat. So there's a lot of applications for that in the real world. But I still can't give up on my big vision for Bubble, and that really is this panoptic portal for VR creation, for mobile VR creation. When everybody's got their Oculus Rifts and they're wearing them, and that was inspired by a gamer wanting to be inside the game. I'm a creator and a storyteller who's inspired by life. I want to be able to capture life and bring it into that world. I'm not interested in playing in games. I'm interested in sharing experience with people in that space. And so I work with some very smart people now. This is Mike, one of our PhDs in optical physics, and he's playing with our very latest piece of hardware. It's a real disruptive game changer. I've got competition now. Every one of these companies here, you have seen already as concepts from mine from 2001, 2002. Every single player. I relish them. It's fantastic. It keeps us on our toes. It makes the space grow bigger, and that's a good thing. And this is going to be kind of my play, which is what I call Bubble Cam. It uses my ultra-high fidelity precision optics, and it's like a little lightsaber, but it shoots truth, right? And I think there's something in that, because it's all about light. So many applications. I've got the WWF, want to put them on the ground for conservation. I've got Jamie Oliver, who wants to do a thing called Just Jamie, put them on the table as he's cooking, so that he doesn't need a soundman and his cameraman and everything else. He just moves around the camera and does his stuff. And YouTube want to do it for like news streaming and for live music and that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. Of course, I'm unfunded, so I'm just working on my wits and my talents and the things that I can do, and at some point things work in my favor. What I have learned is to keep things simple. My next product is a thing called honkies, right? Handlebars that honk. The only clever thing is using the open tube of the top of the scooter bar, because it's open, and then using that as an extended part of the trumpet. One end is squeezy, one end is honky. Fucking simple. But in simple designs, what's lovely about that is when that's discarded in someone's garden 2 decades later, it'll still be working. And so what I've learned is keep design simple and design to be resilient. Right, so of course all my things are going to have purpose and story and positivity, but design things to be resilient. And that brings me on to my next venture, which kind of brings everything together. I don't want to be a TV presenter. I've got everybody offering me stuff now. I can go and work for the BBC if I want to. And I no doubt will. I've got a wonderful concept and development with them called Man versus Machine. And I like that media. Don't get me wrong. Now I've done it, I realised how much fun it is. I mean, when I walk into my town now, it's just a joy, because people look at me and my son as, we're not celebrities, we are the same people. There's nothing exclusive about our lifestyle. We're so approachable and reachable by everybody. I want to kind of break that myth, that divide down and make it accessible to everybody. My postman came by me the other day and he dropped off a letter and he said, "You're Tom Lawton, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, look, that's clever. You're holding a letter with my name on it." and he said to me, and he'd seen the show with my son, and he just said, "I wish I'd had a dad like you." Now, how am I supposed to... I mean, that's just amazing, right? That's just incredible. That's so warm, and that's what I'm about. It's about community. And now I have a great relationship with the guy, and I kind of understand a little bit more about his life. So I am positively human. That's what I'm about. My motivation is to take simple ideas, brilliant ideas, take them out, make them happen. My key thing is resilience, really. I can't... It's like the thing you're seeing me now excited about projects that have literally broken me and kind of, stretched me in every possible way, but I'm still enthusiastic about them. I'm even more excited about the stuff that I'm now working on and doing, but of course I can't talk to you about it because of intellectual property rights and that kind of stuff. But I have a couple of designs. One of them's Barney's, which is amazing, which of course I can't talk to you about because otherwise he'd shoot me. But the other one is, it's a wearable, renewable energy device. It will revisit the spirit of the Firewinder, the wind lights, but it's a human device, and All I want to do is design something that lasts longer than I do. That's my objective. My enemy now is obsolescence. It's funny, the guy a couple of talks ago was talking about the iPhone 6. Will you be there in 200 years giving someone an iPhone 6? Of course you fucking won't. They've designed it already to be obsolete because they know what the iPhone 7 is and they're going to just launch it out. We are in such a disposable, sad situation. I got my passion for inventing from my father, who would fix the toys that I had broken, right? And so, because you didn't just throw things away, if you'd have no toy, you had to mend it. And that's what I want to do, is I want to bring that back, I want to bring that longevity back, but in a range of devices that are simple and they are resilient, and at some point I'll make some money. Thank you very much for listening.